used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And now, la, la, la.
In this video, we will describe how to plan, prepare, and present an area variance request in the town of DeWitt. We will discuss the factors used by the Zoning Board of Appeals in determining whether to grant the variance and provide examples of evidence relevant to each of these factors. By this point, the applicant has already gone to the DeWitt Town Hall to obtain a permit and has been found to require an area variance. An area variance is required when an owner does not comply or plans not to comply with setback, lot area, parking, or other dimensional or physical requirements of the zoning ordinance. An application for an area variance must be completed and is available through the town's website under ZBA Application and Hearing Guide. After the board receives the application, it will fix a reasonable time for a public hearing and provide public notice. Property owners within 300 feet of the parcel in question are personally notified of the variance request. Legal notice is published in the DeWitt Times.
Thanks for meeting with us, Emily. We're told we need an area variance, but we just don't know where to start.
Well, you came to the right place. Anything for two of my favorite clients. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your project?
Well, we want to build an addition to our garage. It fits one car now, but with the Syracuse winters and a newborn, we need a two-car garage. The only problem is that the addition slightly violates the side lot requirements. It'll be nearly impossible to accommodate two cars and meet the required setback.
Well, I tell all my clients who are looking for area variances the same thing, whether it's for their home, their business, or their office. Remember the 3 P's: plan, prepare, present. An applicant must plan according to the standards used by the Zoning Board of Appeals. In making its determination on whether to grant an area variance, the ZBA must consider the benefit to the applicant, if granted, as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. In making this determination, the board weighs 5 factors, none of which is determinative on its own. It is important to remember that an area variance determination involves a balancing test. The applicant bears the burden of demonstrating that the benefits of the variance outweigh the burdens. Well, before you make your case to the board, you have to prepare the right evidence for each factor. So, the first factor in making your determination is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created. In addressing the first factor, photographs of the neighborhood should be taken or obtained from a program like Google Street View. In addition, the general size, style, and dimensions of surrounding homes should be recorded. Letters of support from neighbors are also very informative and influential. The ZBA should have before it all the evidence it needs to ascertain the character of the neighborhood. The pictures, documents, and letters must show how granting the variance will not change the character of the neighborhood or work a detriment to nearby properties.
How might this factor apply to our garage expansion?
Well, in the case of a 2-car garage, snow accumulation that's placed too close to your property line could result in increased flooding to your neighbor's detriment. The second factor you must plan to address is whether the benefit sought can be achieved by some other feasible mean. In this respect, letters from your contractor or expert appraiser may prove helpful, as with the approximate itemized costs of alternatives. Remember that feasibility is the issue. Increased costs associated with another method might not suffice for this factor absent other hardship. However, as in the case of the garage, if no other design or size will allow the 2 cars to fit, it may demonstrate the lack of feasible alternative. The third factor is whether the requested variance is substantial. This factor is relatively self-explanatory, but it may be helpful if I provide some examples of projects which have been found to be substantial in other jurisdictions in New York. A request for an area variance to build a house 3 times the size allowed by the zoning code, and a request to cover more than 60% of a 1-acre lot were both considered substantial. The fourth factor to consider is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district.
What evidence should we bring for this factor?
To help establish the visual character of the neighborhood, it might be a good idea to bring photographs, either from a bird's eye view or the street view. Any support from the neighbors in the form of a signed petition or a letter on your behalf would be very helpful. And additionally, any studies that you have, documents, maps, etc., that discuss traffic flow or safety issues, infrastructure problems, that would also be appropriate to bring. Now lastly, the fifth factor, it's good to remember that the burden is on the applicant to show that the alleged difficulty was not self-created.
In the case your area variance is self-created, you should prepare evidence to justify your proposed plan. Useful evidence to consider are photographs or blueprints of the property that demonstrate the layout or features that pose the obstacles requiring the proposed area variance. It would be useful to present the board with photos, blueprints, or a rough sketch of your home to clearly demonstrate justification for a self-created difficulty.
But don't most area variance requests result from self-created difficulties? I mean, no one's forcing us to build a two-car garage.
Very true, but remember that one factor is not determinative. It is the weighing and balancing of all 5 factors that determines if the variance will be granted. You should focus on justifying your choice of the particular method chosen. This factor may be the most difficult of all to prove, as the need for most variances do not result from clear external forces. Do not let that trouble you too much, though, as most of the area variances which are granted result from self-created difficulties.
Now as for presenting, it's important to understand how the hearing will go.
We're both a little nervous to present. Neither of us are great public speakers.
That's perfectly understandable.
I usually give my clients a few useful tips before presenting to the Zoning Board of Appeals. First, it is best to avoid making an emotional appeal to the board. They are bound by the law, and so collecting evidence demonstrating the 5 factors for an area variance will be the most beneficial approach to your appeal. Second, bring enough copies of your documents for the entire board. There are 7 members, so try to bring at least 7 copies of any photographs, blueprints, letters, petitions, or other evidence you've collected. Finally, it's suggested that you dress professionally. Though this is not a requirement for appearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals, it does demonstrate respect and that you're taking the proceedings seriously.
Most of all, remember to bring the evidence that we discussed for each of the 5 factors. It'll help the board build the record they need to grant your area variance request.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Thanks, Emily. We'll let you know how it goes.
Sounds great. Good luck.
Thank you.